So whatever your big three are, name them. And then address them in first person as if they've already been completed. So maybe your affirmation starts something like, I am punctual. I focus on things that are important and I ignore things that distract. We're getting somewhere, right? What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence family, where you're gonna learn how to develop students' life skills, mindset, and character. In one of the last videos, we talked about using a daily affirmation with our students to help build confidence within them because we know that they're capable, we just need them to start believing in themselves too. I shared with you my 6th grade affirmation that I use with my 6th grade students for their specific situation, and I'll link that in the description below if you want to see that again. But today's video is all about you creating your own affirmation for your students in their specific situation. I remember my first year teaching when I was trying to find myself, like all of us in our first year teaching, right? And I'm the type of person that I just really want to be great at everything that I do. And anytime I see somebody that's doing something that I want to do successfully, I ask them, what is it that you do? Because I want to see if I can glean from you, learn from you, and do some of the same things. So I remember asking one of my coworkers who had tremendous control of her classroom. Like if you walk past her classroom, it's like her students were scared to look at the door. Like you know how when you see something at the corner of your eye, you just glance over? No. If you walk past her classroom, their eyes were like glued on the teacher, silence, everybody was upright in their chair. And I was like, if you look at my classroom, it was a good day if I could just have all the students seated at the same time. Like I was like playing verbal whack-a-mole in class. Like, hey, you sit down. You, hey, in the back, sit down. Come on, man. Hey, you up again? You know, like the whole time. And it was just first year. So what she told me to do was she said, you just need to hulk up. You know, you just need to yell at them, to scream, like to bark at them a little bit. If you bark at them, they're gonna sit down and they're gonna be quiet and they're gonna respect you, and your class will look like my class. And I was like, all right. Now, just to give you some background, she was an ex-college basketball player, about 20 years removed. She was about 6'2", maybe 220 pounds at the time, and she had a booming voice. Me, my first year teaching, I was 5'7". I was praying that I could bulk up to 140. That was my goal. And I was just excited that my beard finally connected. Like it was like starting to do that. So that was me in my first year teaching. So that's the advice that she gave me. And I remember taking that advice, practicing in the mirror at home. And I went into my classroom and my students were all over the place doing their thing. And I remember being like, y'all need to sit down right now. I'm not playing that no more. Sit down and stop talking. Everybody close your mouths, sit down. And you know what happened? The entire class, like the whole class, started laughing all at the same time. All of them started laughing. Like even a little girl that never spoke, like everybody started laughing because they knew that just wasn't me. So that was a growth moment for me because I realized what worked for her in her classroom wouldn't necessarily work for me because we had different circumstances. Now the principle remains the same. What she should have told me was be clear and consistent. That's what she wanted to say, but that's not what translated. What she wanted to say was be clear and consistent because what I would soon realize is that what I needed to do in my classroom was make sure that I say what I meant and meant what I said and be consistent with my consequences. So the principle that she was trying to convey was the same, but the methods looked a lot different. See, for me, I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to bark at them. I just had to make sure that I was detailing clear expectations to my students and giving consistent consequences when they did things they weren't supposed to do. And that's what ended up working for me. But that's a whole different conversation. We're not gonna get into that right now. So the same thing goes with these affirmations. The principle remains the same, that giving a daily affirmation or reciting a daily affirmation with your students is gonna build that confidence within themselves and that belief in themselves as developing a growth mindset that's going to make them capable of achieving the work that you set before them. But your words may not be my words because my students have specific things that I needed to target with them, and your students are going to be different. So here we go. Here are the 3 steps that you can take in order to create your own affirmation for your students. Step number 1, address the needs of your students. The question that you should ask yourself here are, what 3 things are holding my students back from maximizing their full potential? I like the number 3. It's really salient. So what 3 characteristics are holding my students back from maximizing their true potential? So maybe you're realizing that your students are logging into your Zoom classes late, or they're showing up to class late. So maybe you recognize that not being punctual is something that's holding them back from achieving their full potential. Or maybe you're noticing that your students are having struggles prioritizing the things that are important, and they continue to get distracted with the things that they're seeing around them, whether again it's on Zoom and something's in the background, or they're in class and they're distracted with their cell phones or technology or whatever it is. You're realizing that they're not prioritizing the things that are important, they're prioritizing the distractions instead. So whatever your big three are, name them and then address them in first person as if they've already been completed. So maybe your affirmation starts something like, I am punctual. I focus on things that are important and I ignore things that distract. We're getting somewhere, right? So find those big three things and address those things that are not as if they are. Step number 2, keep it brief. Here's the question that you ask yourself. How can I make this as long as it needs to be, but as short as possible? That's the sweet spot you want to hit. You want to make it as long as it needs to be to get all the information out, but as short as possible as to not lose interest. It's kind of like watching videos on YouTube. You'll watch a video as long as it's relevant to you, and then sometimes you'll click off before you get to the end of the video because you've lost interest, which means that video was too long for you. But if it is just as long as it needs to be to get you all the information, then cut it off, then it's all right. So make it as long as it has to be to get the information, but as short as possible. Also, you want them to be able to remember at some point. So if it's really, really, really long, it's not something that they're going to be able to easily memorize. And lastly, we're talking about using instructional time. So I remember my goal was to get this done in about 30 seconds or less. So we would all stand up, we'd recite the affirmation, we would sit back down, and my goal was from seat to seat that it was 30 seconds. And that's what I'll tell my students, and I would start my timer, and it was kind of a little game for us. We wanted to only spend 30 seconds of instructional time reciting our affirmation, and the same thing should happen for you. Nobody wants to start class with a 5-minute dissertation. That's not what they want to do. So keep it brief, make it something that they can remember, and make sure not to use too much instructional time on this affirmation. Step number 3, make it catchy. The question that you should ask yourself here is, what about the words that I use will make it memorable? Remember, we want them to remember it because we want it to be something that they have consistently flowing through their brain, but also we want it to be something that they enjoy saying. You know, we all love phrases like, don't decide you can't before you discover that you can. Like that's cool, right? Like we just love saying things like that. We all like quotes that sound cool. Maybe we like rhymes. Maybe we like a cool cadence. Maybe we like alliteration. I love alliteration. So what is it about the words that you choose to use that's gonna make it catchy and make it memorable? We want students to have that reaction that says, ooh, that's deep, right? We love that. And here's a bonus for you, be consistent. This is an everyday thing. Start every class this way. And even if it's not the beginning of the school year, you don't have to wait until the beginning of next school year to start this. Start now. Who cares? Go for it, right? Just make sure that you are consistent with it and stick with it. So I will include the framework for what we just discussed in an editable PDF in the description below so that you can download it, rework it, print it out if you want to, but to design the perfect affirmation for you and your students. Now remember, I designed a 5-part growth mindset resource, and part 2 is all about students creating their very own affirmation. And actually that's what one of our upcoming videos will be about, how to get students to create their own self-affirmation, to build up their mindset outside of school. But again, that will be in an upcoming video. But if you want to check out the resource, it's in the description below. Remember, it's 5 parts that's designed to be used throughout the whole school year so students can develop a growth mindset consistently. So go ahead and check that out. Before we go, I just want to remind you, please create an affirmation for your students. And if you don't create one for them, yes, you can use the one that I included in the description below, but go ahead and create an affirmation for your students. My passion is to see students grow, and I know that this is what students need to help them grow. Remember, we have to verbally rewrite history. Years they've been hearing that they can't. Years they've been believing that they can't. Years people have been telling them that they're not good enough. We need them to speak life into themselves and say, I am good enough. I can do this. We just need them to start believing that they can, because after belief comes effort. So for more tips and resources, make sure that you join the family so that we can pursue excellence together. Excellence is not the exception. It's our expectation. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.